Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time for a pretty fun devblog, to be honest. This one is for the Thai subtree that is coming to Japan in the next major updates. Japan is one of the nations in game that is incredibly fun to play in air. It has a ton of really cool propeller aircraft in the form of fighters, some really fun strike aircraft, and even some interesting jets as well. But let's be really honest, Japan really struggles in a lot of areas in terms of jets, which means that when you get through all of those propeller aircraft, you are greeted with a hella of a rough grind. And the whole point of these sets of Thai aircraft is to try and fix that, is to try and make it a bit easier and a bit more fun to be able to get through. And having a look at the aircraft that Gaijin has picked for this subtree for Japan, it actually looks really good and will definitely give a lot of people who play, jets in that area a big, good old line of aircraft to sink their teeth into. In this video, we're going to have a look at all of the aircraft that are coming to the Thai tech tree, and then also, at the same time, maybe talk about some future ones. But first, let's have a look at the history of the Thai Air Force. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe. Let's get started. The Royal Thai Air Force was one of the first air forces in Asia, being formed on the 2nd of November in 1913. 3 Thai officers were sent to France to undergo pilot training after the leadership was impressed by an air display by a Belgian pilot over Bangkok. After completing training, a Breguet biplane and 4 Nieuport 4 monoplanes were purchased. Then later, in 1914, the aviators put on an air display with their new aircraft, and this greatly impressed the king, and with his support, the Air Force was born, named the Royal Aeronautical Service, and then put under the control of the army. Today, the Royal Thai Air Force has approximately 46,000 personnel and close to 500 aircraft, with the Alpha Jet, F-5, F-16, and Gripen, to name a few, in service today. The thing about the Japanese jets in War Thunder is not many of them actually have a lot of ordnance on them in terms of ground pounding or in terms of CAS, so adding in a bunch of Thai jets with those abilities is pretty much what Gaijin is going to do in order to kind of sort out the balance of that part of the tech tree, and it is fantastic to see. It really is. This is the perfect opportunity to show how good subtrees can be, just like how you have, the South African ground one in Britain, and also the Finnish ones, which have bolstered Sweden. Now Thailand will be able to bolster Japan. And people have talked about, how to bolster Japan in the past, and South Korea was always brought up because it was brought up from a ground perspective. But we started talking about Thailand a few years ago from an air perspective, because I know that, Japan has a bit of a weird top tier in ground, but there are still a bunch of vehicles to add. The problem is their air. Because of the Defense Force nature, they have a lot of weird design decisions that were made on stuff like the F1 not having countermeasures. Yes, I know it can get chaff pods, but, not very useful compared to flares at that BR. Then you have stuff like the T2, which once again is fast, but unfortunately is not able to get a lot done. Then the F104J as well, which doesn't once again have countermeasures. So you have all of these vehicles there which are very aggressive, very offensive, but cannot defend themselves. So with these Thai aircraft, what you're seeing is something a little bit different. You're seeing vehicles which can defend themselves, but also actually have a CAS opportunity as well, which will make a big difference to the Japanese line and make it a lot more fun to play. Now, because of the Thai Air Force, they could easily add in a bunch of propeller aircraft too, but they've decided to start in the jet era. So the first aircraft of the Thai subtree is actually an F-84G, which is a great platform, especially if it gets an air spawn in Air Realistic. It's very fast, good guns, and generally has good bombs on it too. It's also a vehicle that you can find in a bunch of other trees as well, since it was farmed out by America for export, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. And then after that, you're going to have 2 Alpha Jets. So you're going to have the Alpha Jet A variant, which is coming in. Right now in War Thunder, we actually have 2 of the Alpha Jets, right? You have the A, and then you have the French one as well, which I can't remember the name. I think it's the E, but I might be wrong about that. Basically, the Alpha Jet A is quite nice for Germany. If you haven't played it, I do highly recommend it. It's a pretty fun vehicle. It has a ballistic computer, which is really cool, and also at the same time it has some ordnance, which is quite nice. The only problem with the Alpha Jet A is it doesn't have a ton of offensive armament in terms of the gun, because of the fact that it has only the Mauser, which doesn't give you a ton of firepower, but the secondary ordnance is really nice. So if you want to look at what the Thai Alpha Jet A is going to look like, all you got to do is have a look at that one. And then there is going to be an Alpha Jet TH Phase 1. This is an upgraded version of the Alpha Jet, and basically the difference between this one and the earlier ones is the ordnance that it can carry. The Alpha Jet being more of a CAS aircraft, the whole point of this one is so it can carry some pretty gnarly ordnance. First of all, it doesn't get a gun, so it drops it. But as we talked about before, with Thailand, it doesn't really matter. Because it's only a 27mm Mauser with limited ammunition, but you do get 4 all-aspect AIM-9P4 air-to-air missiles, and also you can carry probably a bunch of rockets, probably a bunch of bombs, and I'm not sure if they're going to be guided munitions, but we'll see, right? They do show a bunch of rockets around the place, but mainly on the Alpha Jet A, but I'm sure the TH will get it too. But the main selling point is all of the missiles, and it'll be another one of these kind of strike aircraft that just has a lot of secondary ordnance that it can annihilate people with, and also will have countermeasures too. So think of more kind of like the A6E style of machine. I feel like that's how that Alpha Jet is going to be. And then with the Squadron F5, which is already in the game, they are going to put in 2 more models of the F5-2. You have the standard F5A, which you'll find in the Chinese tech tree and also as an event vehicle for America, but it's also going to come to Thailand. Now, the F5A is in a fine place. Generally, it doesn't have the best ordnance around, but it does get access to countermeasures, which means that you can dogfight very efficiently with it, which is quite good. And then they're adding in a very, very advanced F5, the F5 TSCU Tigris. The difference between this one and the other F5s is that this one has a ton of different ordnance options, which should be kind of unique to the vehicle, which are pretty nuts. First of all, it has access to the Python 3 air-to-air missiles, which is a missile that doesn't have IRCCM, but has incredibly good turn and also incredibly good boost. It's a fantastic missile. Also, the Tigris should get access to a lot more guided munitions, whether it's bombs, whether it's stuff like Mavericks, we'll have to see, but it should make it incredibly good at doing casseroles, which is something that the Japanese tree needs. Then you have some other CAS aircraft. The A7E is coming in, which once again we already have in game in the American tech tree, and then the AV8S late. I don't think the late will be that different from the early that they've added in, which is the premium. My guess would be that what they're going to do with it is they're going to probably give it a slightly different set of ordnance just to make it different from it. The idea of the early and the late thing is just a way of kind of splitting them, so therefore you can have like a premium version and then you can have a standard tech tree version. They are fundamentally the same thing, and that's what we've seen from other vehicles too. And then at the end of the line of the Royal Thai Air Force tree in the Japanese tech tree, you have the F-16A Block 15 OCU and also the JAS-39C Gripen. So 2 very good air combat vehicles, which will have access to active radar homing missiles. They'll also have access, at least the F-16, to Pythons, which will be quite fun, and overall a slightly different playstyle to what you see in other areas. The fact is, these are coming in to be mainly CAS elements for ground, but also at the same time What is very important to see too is the fact that these will be useful in air as well, mainly because they are some of the best vehicles in the game already in other tech trees. So this tech tree may not seem very flashy, but from a subtree point of view, it does exactly what it needs to do. It bolsters the Japanese tech tree in ways where it is suffering in terms of CAS and also in terms of countermeasures, and it adds a bunch of vehicles from a nation that I'm sure a lot of people play War Thunder from. If you don't know about Thailand, you should really have a look. They have a massive population and also huge armed forces, which is why it would be really nice to see them, not just for the air contingent, but also for the ground too when it comes in. It's fantastic to see this. Obviously the copy-paste stuff is kind of annoying, but there's no other way around it nowadays, especially since pretty much every nation has the same stuff. Hopefully they can think about ways of making it a little bit easier to grind, whether it is discounts on, vehicles if you've spaded something similar, or whether it is just reduced modification cost. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.